Hello, welcome back to Mining Now. This one's a bit of a different one. We're filming, Gaudy Molina is over in Chicago at WEFTech, and we've got Toray featured on the show today. So Gaudy's there, she's connected them into our studio, and I'm going to have a chat with Sean Carter. He is the sales director, and Ben Freeman. He is the product line manager at Toray. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you for working with us on this. I hear they're doing like awards, or there's a whole bunch of activity around you, I heard.
Yeah, there's operator competitions going on just across the conference hall here. And so the guys are getting into it and yelling a bit. It's good fun.
And as soon as we're done, the competition will be over. That's how it's going to work. Let's start with Sean. Can you just give us a summary of who Toray is for anybody who doesn't know?
Yeah. Toray is a very large company, about $20 billion a year in revenue, based in Japan. But our company, Toray Membrane USA, we handle North and South America for the membrane division. What makes Toray special is Toray is all about any of the high chemistry or high science applications for materials. So whether that be our division like membranes, or they're also big in carbon fiber, resins, plastics, all sorts of base materials. But Toray as a manufacturer is normally not a household name. We're not selling to anyone in their home, but people in the home get benefit from Toray's products. And that can be, for the water that they drink, or the containers that their food comes in, the planes they fly in, all sorts of materials touch people every day that are made by Toray. But most people don't know the Toray name in the U.S.
It's so amazing. The companies, and we've had a few of them. We've had some brands that so many people are familiar with on the show. And then we've had so many companies that they're like interwoven into everybody's life. And they don't realize it. And Toray really is one of those companies, isn't it?
Right. That's right.
And the manufacturing sort of setup interesting too. It's across the U.S. and then sometimes out. Could you give us a little bit of a snapshot of that too?
Yeah, absolutely. So we manufacture reverse osmosis membranes in our factory near San Diego in Poway, California. But there are many other manufacturing facilities owned by Toray across the U.S., very large carbon fiber manufacturing plants. We make both the fiber and the pre-preg that goes into the Boeing planes, that sort of thing. A lot of potato chip bags, all of that sorts of things are all made by Toray. So there's all sorts of examples that we could probably find in our booth here if we really looked around.
Let's talk about our heavy industry tour brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide, and Corporate Traveler Canada, helping companies travel the globe simpler, faster, and easier. We are heading to events across North America, Africa, and Australia, and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Introducing RemScan by Ziltech, the game changer for rapid hydrocarbon soil measurement. Get accurate petroleum hydrocarbon readings in under 30 seconds. No consumables, no wait time. Just scan your sample for on-the-spot result. Perfect for emergency spill response, spill delineation, excavation chasing, and bioremediation monitoring. RemScan is trusted by top industries and backed by independent verifications. Make real-time decisions without the lab wait or expense. Discover more at Ziltech.com or email them at info@ziltech.com. RemScan by Ziltech, the future of rapid soil assessment. At OIM Consulting, they drive profitability by building your supervisory capability. They equip the people who carry your culture, engage your teams, and ensure that daily targets are achieved. If you want measurable operational results, visit oimconsulting.com. Analyze, improve, sustain. SafeSite has developed a suite of innovative technologies focused on step change improvements that impacts vertical mining, shaft measurement, underground mapping and survey, mine rescue, and emergency response underground. SafeSite solutions introduce new possibilities in approach and efficiency while keeping every site safer. SafeSite solutions deliver valuable data that can quickly be turned into actionable decision data that allows effective and safe operation. Digital guide alignment will reduce shaft maintenance costs, underground mapping drone technology that removes shadows for 100% accurate reconciliation, and mine rescue drones that extend the reach and range of responders on surface and underground. Visit safesitexp.com for more info.
What about on the mining? We'll focus a little bit more on the mining side, and I'll hand this over to whoever wants to sort of kick things off, and you'll both be jumping in on this. But on the mining side, where do you sort of shine?
I think that there's a lot of applications for membranes in mining. We can start with production of clean water for process applications. So you can find membranes, for instance, treating seawater, going through a ultrafiltration membrane to remove suspended solids, and then going on to an RO membrane to remove dissolved solids to create ultra-pure water that can be used in various processes in mining. You can also find membranes on the treatment of mine tailings or wastewaters that are produced during mining processes. And then you can also find membranes in the form of, say, a membrane bioreactor in remote man camps all over the world. And those membranes would be used for treating the wastewater that's generated at a man camp. So you can find membranes all over the place in mining.
What in the mining industry right now, are there specific challenges you're seeing that are specific to Toray?
I'd say so. I mean, we come across all sorts of different applications within mining, because if we're talking about mining as an industry, it depends exactly on what they're mining. And that could be almost anything, right? If we look at all the different types of mining, each separation at each plant is going to be different. And even sometimes mines of the same mineral type or metal type that they're going after, they may have a different processes from one mine to another. So where Toray plays the role there is we are, advisors in that process as to what we can separate and how we can separate. And that can take us down all sorts of different rabbit holes of what we're treating, right? Like Ben said, that can be basically anything. That can be sometimes just the wastewater treatment from the crews. That can mean, actual separations of the metals that they're mining, right? If benefit of all sorts of different types of membranes, it's a way to physically separate things that are traditionally hard to separate, and you can't do it with a traditional filter. That's when membranes come into the mix.
Okay, so let's give a special thank you to one of our longest sponsors of the show, Savona Equipment. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Jared so that he can give you a little bit more info on Savona Equipment.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, people see them as sponsors, so they'll ask me, kind of who they are, what they are, and just trying to understand the scope of the company. So Savona Equipment is a mining supply company, and they're delivering on the whole equipment supply chain. So everything from the ore processing to underground mining, open pit. They're in hard rock and placer operations. And what they're doing is they're sourcing equipment from all over the world and then delivering it all over the world. Now, they are a Canadian company, so they're based there. But, let's say, they're selling entire ore processing plants. So there might be a plant down in Latin America, and there's a new mine that needs that plant in Africa or somewhere in the U.S. So they're facilitating that entire transactions. But they're also delivering, an individual conveyor or a concentrator or a pump package or just an electrical package. So it really is the whole gambit of the mining equipment supply chain.
Oh, that's great then. Well, then you definitely have to check them out. If you're looking for mining equipment, visit them at savonaequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. With Fender Dunlop, you know you are getting the best conveyor belting in the market. That's because they ensure the integrity of their conveyor belting by monitoring each step of the manufacturing process in their North American facilities. Focused attention is given to each belting order to guarantee that they produce a belt that will assist the customer in reducing operation costs, maximizing uptime, and improving revenue. Visit FenderDunlopAmericas.com to learn more. Mine Vision Systems is a mining technology company focused on providing actionable insights from the digitization of a mine. When a mine is digitized, predictive insights become possible. Mine Vision's flagship product, the Face Capture TM mapping system, is a differentiated solution that has a direct impact on production, efficiency, and worker safety. Face Capture is designed for the ore control geologists that make multiple daily decisions impacting the direction and profitability of a mine. Precise and real-time information provided by Face Capture optimizes decision-making. Face Capture is designed to eliminate trade-offs between time, precision, and worker safety. Visit MineVisionSystems.com for more information.
How the engineering side of it, that must be, and maybe Ben, you can talk a little bit about this. Is these systems? It always baffles me, and I've been doing these interviews a while. I've worked a little bit in the mining sector. Just trying to engineer all these systems together never ceases to amaze me. Where do you sort of play in while they're trying to put, from greenfield to brownfield to full production? I mean, they're designing these mines, putting them into implementation, upgrading systems. Where do you come in on that engineering side?
Yeah, that's a good question. Toray is a manufacturer of the membrane filters themselves. We do not manufacture systems, so it's critically important for us to partner with companies that do build those systems and that know what they're doing, particularly in mining applications. They are unique and they are almost always complicated. So it's really important for us to work with good equipment suppliers as well as engineers that understand the entire treatment process and are able to take not just the membranes, but to also pair that with other types of technologies that are going to be required to treat that particular wastewater, for instance, that may be generated at a mine. And it's those partners that we have that have really let's say a larger toolbox that they can pull from. They can bring together a UF membrane, they can bring together an RO membrane, and in between they may need some various types of physiochemical processes to remove particular contaminants and things of that nature. So working with the right partner is, I think, really a key to success for us.
Totally agree. I think, in terms of where we come in on the process, it also depends on what kind of mining we're talking about. If we're talking about the kind of mine where it's a lithium application, which is, a new emerging market, then that's going to be some sort of greenfield application where we're working with the engineers from the start of that project as to how the separation is going to progress. But in more other types of mining, other applications, normally they have a way that they've been doing it, right? And we're coming in later, maybe with a consultant engineer normally, right? They're consultant engineers that specifically work in membrane applications, right? And there's a company called Lincoln Engineering. They do nothing but mining wastewaters and mining waters and mining separations. So we work with companies like that to say, okay, this is how you separate, whatever it may be now. We've got a more efficient way or a better way. Maybe we're increasing their yield, or maybe we're helping them deal with tailings problems, right? We've come in many times where tailings ponds are getting too full and the client needs a way to get rid of that volume. And that's something that we're very good at, right? If there's a tailings pond with all sorts of goodies in it, we can normally figure out, okay, what processes, like Ben said, what steps do we need to remove all of those constituents so that we can discharge that water safely into the environment. So we get brought in on all phases of the project, and I think it depends a lot on what kind of project they have.
Right. I would ask a really simple question. On a tailings pond, so to give you fair context of it, tailings is a hot topic. Tailings ponds are a hot topic in BC because we had an issue, a real bad issue with one. That seems, how long ago was that now? So anyway, when you see tailings pond in BC, everybody perks up now, which is a good thing. But what, like specific product lines, is there 30 different product lines that go in a tailings pond? Is there two? This is I know it's a very layman question, but I'm just trying to understand if you're getting a call about a tailings pond, how many product lines are you trying to offer? What are their options to look at it? Is there different, like, I'm not a tailings pond engineer by any stretch. So is there different ones in different spots? I'm just trying to get a little bit of a layout out of the land.
Yeah, I'd say generally we're talking about 2, maybe 3 product lines.
Right.
When we're looking at a tailings pond, I'd say that almost always you're going to be looking for some membrane to remove suspended solids. That's where our ultrafiltration UF membranes come into play. And you're most likely going to need a product that can handle a lot of suspended solids, high loading, and have a strong chemical tolerance. There's all sorts of things that we can find in those tailings ponds. So it's going to be really important that you've got a fiber, hollow fiber membrane that is can handle high solids and can take the chemicals that are needed to that you'll find and that you'll need to clean the membranes. Okay, and then when you get to an NF or an RO membrane, I guess it depends really on what you're trying to remove. Maybe you want to add to that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. If we're looking at a UF product, if we're looking at separating those dissolved solids, it's a slam dunk every time. It's mostly 1 or 2 products. When we are looking on the reverse osmosis side, now we're talking about dissolved solid separation. And so now we're going to get way more into the weeds regarding what membrane exactly to select to reject exactly what we have in that water and what the osmotic pressure is of those constituents in that water that are going to drive that model. So while there may be one model on the UF side, there's maybe 20 models on the reverse osmosis side. So that's one of the reasons, everyone on our sales staff has to be an engineer, right? We're not selling used cars here. These are highly specialized applications, and we have to be able to help our clients select the right product and get whatever it is they want removed and get the best reliability out of that membrane.
And just sort of circling back to the old, and I wanted to ask about like the lithium side of things. I'm sure that's that is definitely an emerging market. But I was just wondering, so in those scenarios, then who would be the client? Is it an engineering firm? Is it the mining operator? Is it both? Who's actually who's making that final purchasing decision a lot of the times, like in a tailings pond scenario?
That's a great question. I think it depends on where that efficiency or where that desire for change started from, right? Say there's a tailings pond that's going to overflow. In that case, normally they're contacting some sort of consultant engineer, and that consultant engineer is advising them what types of products. So yeah, it's us working with that consulting engineer. That consulting engineer needs to know how our products work, what's available to us, and they're constantly educating themselves, talking with us, and that's our job, make sure they stay properly educated on what we can and can't do. And then ultimately the end user is normally making the choice, but they're making that educated choice where they've been educated by their consultant, sometimes educated by us directly.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting process to actually see unfold. On the lithium side, I mean, the inquiries for that must have just skyrocketed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge market that we're seeing, and we're still developing what the best and most efficient way of separating lithium using membranes is. the current strategy looks like it's a NF and RO combination is the best possible way to concentrate the lithium. The purpose of the NF is you're actually trying to pass the lithium and reject other dissolved constituents in that water. So that's why we're using a nanofilter. A nanofilter is designed to pass certain things, but not others. So it's more selective in terms of what we're allowing to pass. Once we've done that step, then that effluent is going to a reverse osmosis to be concentrated. Because using reverse osmosis is the obvious choice because it's so much more efficient than any kind of thermal technique that you can use to concentrate suspended solids.
Ben, I was going to ask you about the on the treating the water side. I think you were the one who were talking about that earlier. And I was curious, in like the gold, copper mining, there is global standards are obviously rising and rising. I mean, I don't know exactly as much. I know in the U.S. there's pretty high standards. In Canada, I mean, just getting a mine off the ground is a huge undertaking. I think it's, there's a lot of talk now of how we're gonna all of a sudden there's this demand for mined products, and there's not even close, just in copper alone, there's not even close to enough mines to actually meet that demand. So I was wondering, just have there been shifts like treating water and these systems and filtration systems, and is there a lot of like updates that are happening and that type of work? I'm not asking this question great because it's a kind of a tricky topic, but are you seeing operating mines essentially upgrading the way that they're filtering, cleaning, using water, and having a demand for a new type of membranes that maybe they didn't have 10 years ago, let's say?
Well, I would say that there's certainly a general shift towards finding new water sources. As the demand for more of these metals that we're talking about increases, obviously you're going to need more water for those mines, and that can be sometimes in very arid locations where you got to find the water. And so, the one that's, I guess, it's not really new, but certainly the volume of seawater desalination is increasing. So when you look at seawater desal, you've got you have to deal with certain things like algal blooms that happen in seawater that can be quite challenging for certain membranes. So you need to focus innovation on getting the right membrane and having the ability to handle those sorts of challenges that you might find in that particular application. The other one that I would think of is water reuse in general. So we're basically trying to treat all the water that we can. And I think that extends into mining, certainly. So those would be probably the two areas that I would think of off the bat. And like I say, as the demand for the minerals and the metals goes up, we need to be able to provide the water for those mines.
Yeah, I want to add to something we were talking about before, which is, you were asking, well, how do clients start this process of adding membranes, say, to their portfolio to gain this efficiency? The biggest obstacle for us, honestly, is education, is getting out there that we can do these things, right? Most of our clients don't know until they've worked with us that what we're doing is even possible. So for us, very often it starts with just someone reaching out through our website and saying, hey, we have a tailings pond, we're trying to get rid of the water, we're trying to reuse that water for something else or recycle. We've done before where there was a tailings pond and the client wanted the chemical and the water back from that tailings pond, right? So we helped them do that, right? And then now instead of buying more and more chemical, they're recycling the chemical. They're becoming more sustainable, right? And a lot of these mining companies have to be looking at sustainability, have to be looking at, like Ben said, sustainability with water, but also their chemicals. And so very often it's them reaching out to us. We put them in touch with, okay, here's a good engineer to work with. Here's a good manufacturer to work with. Because like Ben said, we're not making these systems. We're making the heart of the system, the membrane part of the system. But we still have to work with engineers at the systems building, whether that be a company like H2O Innovation or Westech, common companies that make these sorts of systems. So we're working with them, we're working with the end users, and sometimes all it takes is the clients learning that we can do this. And then once they realize we can do it, it's very easy for us to get in there and help them.
Ben, I wanted to, I was just curious about, the challenges in the industry. Is there some major ones that you see standing out with, particularly within the mining industry?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of membrane systems that are already out there, and the mine probably had that system supplied by some equipment supplier without really knowing exactly what membranes are in that system. And so we see that when it comes time for replacement of those membranes, the mine may not be aware that there are other options available on the market to replace those membranes. And specifically, we're talking about the UF membranes right now. Traditionally, UF membranes have not been compatible from one supplier to another. And Toray has taken a lot of effort to come out with some solutions to replace our competitors' products. And so if mines are facing that complication, maybe they don't know there are other products out there, maybe they're facing very, very long lead times, that's a space where Toray can help out.
Right, and that's part of that. I would imagine the lead time is where you manufacture, where you're set up. Supply chain issues have they've made some headlines over the last couple of years, so that you kind of plug that gap as well.
Manufacturing in California makes a big difference to your ability to deliver quickly what clients need, especially when there are so many different products.
Okay, this is a thing that always, not baffles is too strong of a word, but it borders on baffles, is that the mining industry specifically seems so small sometimes. And then it's also amazing, though, how notoriously mines would not share their ways of doing things. It's been a very common thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where the limitations on technology. It always surprised me how much one mine will know how to do one thing and another mine won't. I'm guessing you guys still run into that, thinking, "Oh, well, it works over here." Oh no, only this person is doing it.
Oh yeah, all the time. And most of the people we're working with, they're metallurgists, right? What do they know about water treatment? And the converse is also true. What do we know about metallurgy, right? So it very often ends up meaning, okay, we need to go to site, we need to meet with these people and talk with them, understand exactly what their goals are and their real variables to really help them get to the root of their problems and be most efficient at their plants.
Yeah. The one thing that I would add to that is it is a tremendous challenge to get information out of the mines. Nobody wants to share. So you're right on about that point. The one thing that I would say as one exception, though, is that within a particular mining company, they are going to be a lot more willing to share from one site to another. And so to the extent that we can work with the right people within certain companies to try to bridge that gap from one site to a next, I think that's something that we can both benefit from.
There's been a few times when a mine has tried one of our products or processes and then shortly thereafter applied a similar but different strategy at at a different nearby mine. I mean, they might not even be mining the same mineral or metal. We see
Right,
that
but
a
it's
lot.
applicable in the water processing.
Right.
I was going to ask about we talked earlier about your manufacturing facilities, and I'm wondering, like, new membranes coming online for you. That seems like it'd be quite an investment with these facilities essentially across the world to make them. How do you approach that? Like in the lithium side, does it take new membranes to actually bring into the market? Are you using ones that you've had for a long time? Just how do you sort of approach that industry specific?
So in the specific case with lithium, for us, it meant two things. We did have to develop a new membrane. For us, what it meant, we already knew how to do nanofiltration. We already knew, we know the molecular weight, we know the size, we know the surface charge of something like lithium chloride. So we have that understanding, but for us to properly separate that from the other things, one thing that makes lithium different is it's really high osmotic pressure. So because of that, we did actually have to develop a new product specifically for that market because the current product didn't have a strong enough backing to withstand that really high osmotic pressure. So for us, it was a combination, right? On the nano side, we did have to come up with a new product, but on the seawater RO side, we didn't have to come up with a new product. So it's both, but occasionally for specific markets, we do and have come up with new products.
Yeah. And just to add on, there are instances also where you have something like high temperature. And so when you run into that situation, then we may not need to do anything with the membrane itself. We may, but more likely we have to then play with the housing of the membrane or the pressure vessel that the membranes are going into. So
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it comes to membrane toughness, is there anything harder on them than mining? Mining must be way up there for just having to have the products that can actually just withstand. Or when you get into water and stuff, is it pretty much the same from a municipality to a mining operation?
Much more challenging application. Much more challenging. Yeah. I would say that that there's whatever's going on in the feed water that presents a lot of challenges. Like I mentioned before, we may be talking about a lot of suspended solids. We may be talking about certain chemicals that are used in whatever step of the process that you would not find in just a regular water treatment type of application. And then on top of that, there's a different mentality in a mine as compared to, say, a municipal drinking water plant. Municipal drinking water plant is there to produce water. In a mine, they're trying to mine.
Yeah.
They're not trying to treat water. So it is a very different mindset also in those two places, and it presents a different set of challenges, let's say.
Yeah. Mines are constant curveballs. You never know what they're going to do. We've seen tailings ponds where they also were diverting their wastewater into the same tailings pond, like their sanitary waste from the from the crew. And so we're dealing when we first started that project, we thought we were dealing with mineral separation. And then we also realized not only that, we have to deal with a biological component too. So for sure there are curveballs. It makes us better, right? The more we do, the better we've gotten at it.
Right.
Well, just before we wrap up, Ben, we'll start with you and then go over to you, Sean. How'd you end up in this role, this industry? What's the background?
Well, I'd say that I went to Colorado School of Mines, and the majority of my colleagues were headed into some sort of oil and gas career of some kind, which typically included spending their first few years of employment on an oil rig in the middle of nowhere. And I was not particularly interested in that. So instead, I went down the water treatment route and I got to spend some time in the field doing some field engineering, and then went to a company called Hydronautics and spent about a decade there, and got the pleasure of developing and launching a new product while I was there. And then Sean, known Sean for quite some time, and we've been trying to work at the same company for a while. And Sean got promoted and vacated his last position, so I was happy to fill that role for him. So that's how I landed at Toray. But in general, it's been satisfying to work in the water treatment space for my career. I think that it's one of the greatest challenges that we're going to face in our time is water treatment. And where are we going to get all this water that we need? So happy to be a part of the industry.
Yeah, the water conversation is a great one. Like we did, maybe shouldn't say the company we did, but we had them on the show, and they were talking about a mining operation, I think in Saudi Arabia, and there was no water.
Yeah.
And so it was
Correct.
a chemical system, and then they would bring in water or something, like some crazy thing that they had to come up with to do it. It's just wild stuff. Just the engineering alone was amazing. And then, Sean, you've been with the company for on LinkedIn, it's almost 10 years.
Yeah, about 10 years. I started, Ben's a chemical engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to Cal Poly and started building water treatment plants straight out of school. First started with ozone technologies, then got into reverse osmosis, then ultrafiltration, membrane bioreactors. And I have done nothing but membranes since I graduated from school. And that kind of background helps certainly if we're talking to our clients, because we've got systems building experience. Ben's one of our product managers. Our other product manager is an environmental engineer, right? So we have so many different kinds of engineers on our staff, including our regional sales team, which is almost all engineers as well. We're commercial people, we're problem solvers, but we're also very in tune with the technology, very in tune with what's possible, what's not possible, what problems might arise. And I think that's what's made us really successful in this particular market segment. And, to my earlier point, that's why we want to get the word out there that, hey, we can do this. This is something that we're good at. And really all we need to know is the problem to help come up with a solution.
Right. Yeah. You said you've right out of basically from college days, you've been working with membranes, you said, right?
Yeah.
So does the knowledge open the door to all the other things that you don't know, in the sense that it's like an amazing musician? The more they learn, it's just like then it just compounds and more to learn. Is it kind of like that, or do you feel like you pretty much got it locked in now?
It builds. I'd say it builds on itself, of course, right? The more you learn, the more you and sometimes it's more of a case of understanding how much you don't know about all of the other disciplines, right? We talked about metallurgists before. Metallurgists know all sorts of stuff that we have no clue about. We've been at mines before where as we are performing the separation, the chemical was actually changing its compound from one type to another during the separation, and partially because of the separation. So for sure, we never ever stop learning. Mining is so complicated that all we can do is continue to learn and adapt. Right. And as we learn more, definitely we get better, and we get better at providing the simplest possible solution.
Yeah. I would just add that the longer that I've been in the industry, the easier it's been for me to kind of find the limits of the product and go beyond those a little bit and be able to identify what are the actual limits and what are the things that people are just not doing because they haven't done them before. And so I think that that's something that I'm more comfortable doing now, certainly than I was 10 years ago. And also knowing the players, right? And maybe we don't have the answer, but maybe we know the guy that does. And as long as we can get that conversation started with, say, those metallurgists or whomever it is at the mine, then I think that collectively we can come up with some pretty good solutions.
I'm just going to leave you both with the last question. Actually, is the communication part of it and how important that part is, because technical knowledge, but then you're dealing with people with all these other experts in all these other disciplines. And I'll maybe Sean start with you, and Ben let you wrap it up. Is how in your career learning that side of it, learning to communicate, how quickly you give off that you know the answer, or sometimes you ask a few more questions just to build that trust. Just sort of how you feel you've grown in that particular area.
Sure. I think when it comes to communication, it's key on these projects. And the better we communicate with everyone and the faster we communicate with everyone, the better off we all end up being. So all of us on our engineering and sales engineering teams, that's communication's number one, right? Be talking to your clients, learn their problem, and don't just learn the surface of their problem, really dig in to find the root of those problems. And that helps us find the most elegant solution.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is that I think that there's tremendous value in making periodic visits to the actual site. And there's nothing like talking with the guys who are really operating the system to find out what's really going on. You can get an idea from emails and phone calls, but being on site is priceless.
No, I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because over the last with COVID and that, we learned, we're doing this remotely, right? We learned to do things differently and communicate differently, but I think now quite quickly people have realized, like, especially for technical information and that, you can't just do it. You can't just put on a camera and then show people what, like, there's something about being on site, helping people. And so many of the good companies that we've talked to, they are saying stuff like that. They are putting people, they have people locally available, or they're sending people. And you can just tell it has a difference in the results that they're getting. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. How's the event been? Has it been busy?
Yeah, Joe's been very busy.
Very busy.
Yeah, it looked like a good one. I always feel left out when I have to do these remotely, but hopefully I can get out to personally be at the next ones. Thank you very much for being on the show. I hope this is certainly not the last one we do with Toray, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Of course, we're going to have links to Toray. We're going to try to get from them some of the links to the products they mentioned, so those should be in the descriptions below as well. Please keep watching, and thank you for supporting the Mining Show. Mining Now, we have great sponsors, great guests, and partners like CIM, and it just goes on and on. People, travel sponsors helping us get all over the world. So thank you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Mining Now.